I know it's late for you, so thanks for your patience with this.
Absolutely. Yeah. It says it's streaming.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, it just switched over. Oh my gosh, we did it. What I love about this is like resistance is so real. Resistance is real. Oh my gosh. So here we are, Maria Alejandra. The beautiful,
Hello.
elegant, gorgeous, powerful Maria Alejandra is with us now. And I just want to dive right in. So you and I were chatting about this concept of how resistance can, it's like the alchemical nature of when you're empowered. And when you can take something that isn't working and literally, not that it's easy, but you can, it's possible to transmute it into something that does work and into something that really transcends you to a new level of results and breakthrough. And like, you know, we're talking about abundance here, but the truth is it affects everything in your life. And you're such a great example of that, Maria Alejandra. And so what you've caught, what like the leadership that you've and the Dharma Queen that you've chosen to step into and what you've created is nothing short of unbelievably inspiring. So I wanted to give you a chance to share your story of your experience of truly turning resistance into abundance.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. And hi, everybody. We did it. Yes. Here we are, jazz hands. So, Julie, it's an honor. When you asked me to do this, I was like, oh my God, that's so exciting. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love the space and it's beautiful to be here. So it's fascinating because January for me was a month where I realized I was hitting hard against resistance. And for me, what it came down to was because of the path I've been on, my ego has these moments when it's just like comes to these like it like these little deaths happen where it really like transmutes into a different kind of more empowered, not more, but empowered way of really living my life. And January was the month where I was met with a few failures in my business. I was met with a lot of things that I kept feeling like I was bumping up against things. And no surprise, I was sourcing a lot of resistance because I was in this space of avoidance. I was in this space of fear of rejection. It was this combination of things. And to the point where, you know, you and I had a really powerful conversation where I was basically like, you know, just backing out of in what I thought was a very powerful decision I was making of backing out of, you know, something that was really important in my life. And I don't know how deep you want to go in it. I'm willing to go all the way, whatever, you know, whatever you want to share. And we talked about it. And what you lit up for me was the realization that what was really going on was resistance. And it's a hard pill to swallow. And it's something that's so difficult to admit to, especially for those of us who are very driven, ambitious, and capable, and also very heart-centered and very soulful in what we do, because we just move through life with this visionary space of possibility. And so when someone says, actually, what you're in is in a space of resistance, it's like, wait, what? Like, no, that's not what this is. And when I got a chance to really dive a little bit deeper, realized, yes, that's what it is. And then now how to shift it, how to understand, you know, what are the things that I'm afraid of feeling here? What are the things that I'm afraid of experiencing?
Yeah.
And where that comes from. And
let's talk about the
within,
results for a
yeah,
second.
yeah.
Created, and then let's rewind back into some of the details.
Yes. Okay.
So what did you end up creating on the other side of the breakthrough?
So on the other side of the breakthrough, I created a new client, actually the first client for the second group of my program, Rock Your Life Academy, which I'm launching in a couple of months. And that was just a couple of days after the breakthrough happened, which was incredible. I created that. My husband is now joining the leadership program that transformed my life last year that you were the captain of. So it's like all this beautiful synchronicity, hardcore leadership. And that was something that we'd been talking about for a long time. And he was like, yeah, someday. Yes. He was never a hard no, but it was always a someday, always pushing it back. And then all of a sudden, like the gates flung open and he literally said, all right, put me on the next train there. And I was like, Little did he know the next train left like a month ago from the day he said yes. So
Right.
he was like, okay, it's happening. And then a couple of days after that, I enrolled that client into that new program that I'm launching. And I've seen and I've felt this incredible just opening and shift and freedom and momentum in like now hitting a new stride that where I had been feeling really stuck,
Mhm.
and having these like scratch my head moments of never losing sight of my vision, but like, how the heck is this going to happen? Like, it didn't seem like things were fitting in
Yeah.
the right space.
Yeah,
So
like on an energetic level, it's so interesting because like up until that point in the conversation, it was almost like energetic constipation, like it just all the contraction and the like the forcing and the pushing and resisting, and there's like an energy to that. There's a frequency to that. And on the other side of the powerful conversation that we had, you were like reborn. It was like you were just like that flowy, enrolling, effective communicator, mom,
mhm,
wife, leader, coach, all of it
mhm,
that you authentically are. It just, you
yeah,
opened right back up, you know?
yeah,
So of course you got those results because your heart totally changed.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was really, really incredible and such a beautiful, affirmation of what happens when we put ourselves in a space of continuing to believe in what's possible, even when you're like in the, shabib, and seeking the support. And the conversation I had with you was a conversation I was, of course, resisting for a very long time. And I finally said, you know what, this gets to happen. And so it did. And of course, it unleashed something that was meant to come from that moment. It was like this little pivotal just shift in how I saw myself and the depth and the beauty of having someone like hold you in that and like show it to you, because as coaches and as leaders, period, that's how we get to show up, and to have that determination to, it doesn't matter what the outcome is, to just be in the space of what serves the person at their highest, and ultimately the rest of the world through that person, is really powerful. And it takes a lot of courage. And so what's on the other side of moving through that resistance is also a renewed sense of just courage and clarity.
Yeah.
So,
It does take courage. And to
mhm,
that point, Maria Alejandra, I appreciate your willingness. You said I'm willing to go all the way. So
mhm,
let's go into some details now.
mhm,
So you joined Maya, Money Alignment Yoga Academy, last year. That's my high level coaching program designed for ambitious, very spirit filled female entrepreneurs to either start their business and launch it or take it to the next level in a way that feels very in flow and intuitive. And so one of the things that I'll just like background info for everybody watching, so funny because one of the things I say every time I start the course, like people somehow claim that I don't say it, but I know that I say it because I've been saying it every year for the last 14 waves that have gone through. I say there's going to be a point in the program where you really don't like me, or you're going to like resist me, or you're going to resist what I'm saying, or you're going to resist one of the coaches, you're going to resist the process. Like there's going to be a point in the program where you really face it and you're really up against it. And I know that it looks different for different people, because we all come from different backgrounds and experiences, and our resistance is just going to look different. And so it's so funny to me sometimes, not funny like in a mocking way, but just from a humanity standpoint, because I have my own moments too, certainly, where then the resistance emerges. And I know when someone's resistance comes up, that's when it gets good. Because if the resistance is that big, that means something really juicy is on the other side of it. And I'm really grateful that I've learned to be an effective enough leader and coach to, like you were saying, Maria Alejandra, like really be like courageously be with someone in that fire and in that moment, versus be another person in their life who says, you know what, you're right,
mm,
because that's not what any of us are here to do. You're not here to do that. I'm not here to do that. Nobody watching is here to do that. And I want to be clear, this isn't about like being an asshole or being disrespectful or like, I think you guys get the gist of that, but it's about reminding a person of their vision and why they are doing this in the first place. That's really our job, especially as coaches, is to evoke that. And so you were in that moment of like, not feeling Maya for this, and this, and this reason. And whatever needs to happen, I acknowledge that I'm responsible for that. And just, like, I think my time in the sisterhood is complete. And the thing is, I know that some people, they're going to get their big breakthrough in Maya in like week 2. Some people, I've seen them get their big breakthrough. It's a 12-month program in month 11. So I know that, like, it's going to happen in some window. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I know that if someone's facing that kind of resistance, it really is my prerogative to stand for them. And of course, then it's their choice if they want to be in the fire with me or not. I can't force anything, but you were willing and courageous and powerful enough to say, you know what? Yeah, like, let's do this dance and let's see what happens. Why don't you share a little bit about what happened there for you?
Yeah. So for a couple of months, I was like, I'm just not feeling it, not feeling it. And I knew I get to have a conversation with Julie, and I kept delaying it and delaying it and delaying it. And then finally, I remember one day feeling like, you know what, things aren't really working out. And I know I've come to understand. And again, I think this is part of the resistance too, is things that aren't in completion in our lives, that are like these sort of like energy leaks, right? And so I was like, you know what, this is something I decided in my head. I was like, I've decided that this isn't, for me right now. Let me talk to her. And it was a stretchy conversation because, it just was. It's like, it's hard to say, for me at least, and how how I'm wired. And I said, but I gotta have it anyway. So I was very proud of myself for going in like very like, I'm decided. She's not going to talk me into anything. I'm not going to get re-enrolled. Like, I know. And it wasn't like from a negative place, but just like, I'm cool. I'm good. And of course, what ended up happening is it had nothing to do with the circumstances of the program itself. And the program is amazing. It just wasn't resonating with me. I didn't feel it. And so I was like, I don't want to be in something that I'm not 100% in. And of course, that the I'm not 100% in was showing up in so many areas of my life. And so seeing that as a way of how it was showing up was like, oh my God. And of course, it wasn't a new concept for me. And yet I got to see it in a whole new light. So, Julie asked if, can we do this dance in the fire? And I was like, of course, let's go for it. And we went there and I cried and I got upset and, I vented and I went through a whole range of emotions during that conversation. And I hit this deeper truth of why I was avoiding being in this kind of space. Why I was avoiding showing up, why I was avoiding feeling, and a lot of it has to do with the growth that I've experienced and the um this continuous unfolding that brings in more vulnerability, more exposure, more of that like deeper truth of who you are. And I think there's this tendency to kind of like want to shield yourself and sort of, and it might show up in different ways. For me, it was just, I'm just not going to do this thing anymore. And yeah, I mean, on the other side, I hung up the phone and I was like, all like tears and the sense of incredible just relief, and also felt incredibly supported. And then stepped into, okay, well, I have a choice. It was another reminder of a choice point. Like, I have a choice. I can either go this way or I can go that way. And choosing to step powerfully into, well, what it is that I'm here for and what do I get to create. And I get to decide what all this looks like from a very deep place.
Can I just pause you?
Was, yeah.
So one of the distinctions we really landed on was, and this, I think this is, like you said, a continuously unfolding distinction of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And like, one of the creeds of a Dharma queen is, I'm 100% responsible 100% of the time. I mean, if you want to be a powerful manifester, that is the only choice.
Mm-hmm.
The other possibility is, I am at cause to my circumstances, but that's not what a Dharma queen chooses, because that's not powerful and you can't manifest from that. You just can't. So from that place of, I like, and it's not a new concept for you, but, and the reason I'm kind of outlining this in this way is because I know there are people who are watching this and they're like, but I already know that. Like, but there's such a deeper level. So where we went with that was, Okay, so Maya doesn't, you're not feeling it right now. And by the way, I'm so grateful to have this honest conversation because I'm so sick of people just skating over the surface inauthentically, like everything is perfect all the time. Like, no, like we need more leaders and coaches like you and like me who are like, guess what? There's hard moments in coaching relationships. It's like any relationship. And there's moments where it feels like it's not working. And how do we get through it? Like real raw moments of how do we get through it as humans who care. So I'm really grateful for this conversation. Um, and what I said to you was, who's responsible to create Maya to be the program that you desire it to be? Like, who's responsible for creating that space? Who's responsible for creating the experience? And like, yes, I'm responsible for creating an excellent program, but ultimately this was a pattern that was, you saw how it played out in literally all these different areas in your life. And that was where the heart cracked open moment
Yeah.
happened. Maybe you can
Yeah.
even figure that out a little bit.
And what you said earlier was so perfect because I was about to say the same thing, that
Yeah.
I knew it in my head and
Yeah.
I knew this concept, and yet it's that deeper embodying of,
Yeah.
oh, and even now as you were saying it, I was like, I feel it in my body. I feel it in my system a little bit differently.
Yes.
And it's a testament to what happens when we stay in the game and when we stay in that, that this is a long game of leadership and of how we get to impact the world. And the first choices that we make to step into our power, it's almost like, okay, great, now I'm doing this thing, whatever it is that you're showing up as. I launched my business, I'm now doing the videos, or whatever it is that you're creating. And then it takes that really like staying in it so that you can give yourself and your system and your soul the opportunity to really process those deeper aha moments and like crack open shifts. Like I literally felt like some like armor was like like released. There was
Wow.
like this clicking, oh, this just opening up during that conversation, because it was like it was absolutely a pattern. And dare I say, it's a pattern that I think a lot of really powerful women carry with us, because it goes back to our stories of worth, our stories of having to prove ourselves, our stories of where we don't show up powerfully because there's fear of, am I too much or am I not enough? Or there's always something. And so what we do is we then we retreat. And seeing how I was retreating and not showing up all in and not realizing that I was, I get to cause everything that's occurring in my life. I was kind of leaving it up to other things to happen. And my gosh, when you understand that and you allow yourself the space to be held in that, is like, then you're unstoppable, and there's no capping the abundance. There's no capping how you get to show up.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like,
It's
kind of mind blowing.
super mind blowing. And I want to add too, it's not like the breakthrough you had after our conversation was like the first time you enrolled a client. Like you filled a program last year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I filled a program last year. I've had some really good success as a coach starting out and everything. And I realized I'd hit like this wall of all these stories in my head of, can I replicate that? Is it going to happen again? What does
that's
this
it.
look
That's it.
like?
This is it. This is what you were up against in January.
Yeah.
So it's like you created all these amazing results last year. And then there was this like moment of limbo. God, I remember this is such a great thing for me to say too. For the first 2.5 years of my business, I literally thought it was all an accident. And I had exactly what you just said. I had it every year, like, shit, can I do it again? And that is such a vulnerable, scary place to be. So like the manifestation of the way the resistance came out for Maya, for this, for that, for all these different things, and we went deep with it, like you were starting to say before. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it actually went very deep, and it it was in your willingness and your surrender to like really go into some of the exercises we did together to face the resistance and to break through it. It was like that created that new level of not just having created the results once, but actually making it sustainable and be able to create it again and again and again in a
Yeah.
whole new way, at whole new levels.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I no longer feel that fear of, am I able to sustain this? Because then what also happened is that I launched a successful business. I filled the program, and then my husband and I totally doubled down because we decided to embark on an even more aggressive way to grow the business. He quit his job. I know aggressive is such a masculine word. That's what came up because we were like, all right, we believe this. We're going to go for it. And so that put all that extra pressure on. Oh my gosh. And without, because that's the thing I always said, and I remember saying it in the conversation with you. I was like, but my vision does not waver. Like I'm so, I taste it. And I was very clear that there was something that was stopping me. There was something that was stopping me from going all the way. And you asked me very clearly, you're like, okay, so what are you afraid of is going to happen once you go all the way? Like once there's no breaks. And I think my answer was I would feel exposed. I'd feel like, and again, exposure means then everything's on the table. And so anything that I feared before in terms of perfectionism, getting it right, looking good, the whole thing, and looking good, not just physically, but the showing up in a way where I won't look stupid and I'll say the right thing, then all of it is on the table. There's no more like, it felt with that conversation also felt for me. And it was a combination of things that were divinely timed, of course, to help me like bust through that. Was like, it was like the Wizard of Oz was like the woman behind the curtain, like, oh, I'm just, doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden it was like, nope. And I'm there like naked, like,
right.
hi. And and I'm sure everybody, if you can relate to this moment of not, it's gonna happen. And it felt then like, look at me, here's my naked body, and let me do a turn for you. And I got some, I got some stretch marks, and I got some things here, and I also love myself at the same time. And I was like, and that was the big, like, imagine like the resistance of like, don't see all of me, to
Right.
then that, I mean, what do I have to hide?
And like, not that this is conditional or contingent on anything, but also being seen in that way, seen like, first of all, in the conversation you and I had, but then furthermore, and I'd love for you to even like take this out into the world even more than you already have, but like being able to be experienced as unconditionally loved, like in the exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've discovered is that the more that I reveal myself and the more I've never been someone, since I started my business, I've made a commitment to myself to not be secretive. I've just made a commitment to be totally transparent. And I've found that it is actually so much, I feel safer when I'm fully transparent versus when at the risk of saying too much sometimes, and I've discovered that actually sources even more love and more acceptance. Again, not that it's contingent on that, like I'm committed to being that way anyway, but it's just an interesting, wonderful benefit that I receive even more love for being that much more authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that my system was craving. That's why there was so much resistance, because I knew the truth of my higher self was craving that level of authenticity, that level of, it doesn't matter because I get to show up every single day in my power and in my, all of it. And, and something else that was really powerful for me in the conversation is has been powerful for me as I've experienced you, is how you show up, like how you show up in such authenticity with every aspect of your personality, of what makes you Julie, of your quirks, of and how you go deeper in even one-on-one conversations of, this happened to me, or this is how I moved through it. And I remember thinking, my God, like it's so refreshing and so empowering to hear that from someone that you see as, she's on this path. And it's like priceless. And there's nowhere in my mind and my heart and anywhere in my system that I lost any kind of like, oh, well, see, Julie, which is like what I'm thinking. Like, if I show too much, people are going to be like, well, see, she doesn't have it together. Like, come on,
like it
close the
discredits
screen.
something like that.
Right. Like it discredits everything you're working so hard to create. And in no way, and when I see like the women that I admire who truly show up, and you can tell when it's like fakey authenticity, or like legit. Like you can energetically, you can tell. And I'm like, wow, like that's being in your power. Like
That's it.
take it or leave it. You know, there was something I'll share because towards the end of the conversation, you said it's one of the most powerful things I've ever heard and experienced, like energetically, when you were like, you know, I don't need you. I don't need your approval. I don't need it. You know, I'm standing in my full abundance and power. I don't need anything. I was like, holy shit, beep. Damn, girl. I remember hanging up the phone and being like, what would Julie do? I don't need, I was like, wow. And I've thought about that afterwards because it's the most, and you're like the most giving, loving, open, like there's correlation that we have of like people pleasing because we need something from someone
Right.
to validate us, to validate our business, whatever it is, which is part of where the resistance to exposure comes.
Right.
And to have someone say, I don't need you. I was like, well then, give me some more of that. It was like I felt it to the core. And I mean, to aspire to be, and not aspire because I feel like that's like I made the choice at that moment. I was like, great. It's almost like you open this new door for me to step into that and to also pass that along to the other powerful women that I get to coach, because I have conversations with women all the time who resonate so deeply with this path of being a visionary, being a leader. And we stop ourselves for so many reasons that have to do with getting in our own way out of fear.
Feels so real.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, so yeah.
The resistance, that's like
Yeah.
something that I feel like as a coach, and maybe you can relate with this too, Maria Leandra, I'm sure. I think one of the most challenging things as a coach is when a person's resistance feels so real to them.
Yes.
Because it, like,
Yes.
when you came to the call, it was so real to you. Like you said, you're like, I am not getting re-enrolled. Like you were literally talked yourself through that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I've certainly been there too, where like I was in a situation where I'm like, no, like I know I'm right, or
Yes.
like here's the deal, like here's how it gets to go down. And I've been in your shoes, like I've been in a total role reversal, you know, with my mentors and coaches, where they like saw a possibility, and that's why we have mentors and coaches, you know, where they saw a possibility that I completely missed, like total blind spot. And then to have them land, I even had a conversation today with someone who helped me see something like my new level and layer of responsibility and compassion in being responsible and like choosing responsibility in a situation where I really like had a belief around something. And again, new layers opening up, like, man, like what would it make possible in my life if I actually chose such a deep level of ownership and responsibility and just a global, like 100%, this is me, like I created this, you know, like I had that myself today. And I think it's really important for people who are watching this, who have a vision, just like, you know, you have a vision, like that's how we're working together. That's why we're friends. Like anyone who's watching this, you have a vision. And I think it's so important, if you have a vision, to recognize there are going, like, look at even the circumstances around this video of us connecting. Like it took us 25 minutes to even finally get this started. Resistance, you know, it's so strong. There are going to be circumstances. And then even when you think it's all like peaches and cream at the beginning, halfway through into a commitment, like resistance is going to pop up at some point, because that's the nature of a vision. And I think it's just really important to like be prepared, especially in a coaching relationship or with any relationship, to have agreements around you where it's like, hey, like you can count on me to be a stand for you and to remind you of your vision when you forget, even when you don't like me or like what I'm saying in that moment. And I really believe, and this is what I was saying to you, that when we show up, when you and I show up in the world in that way, that is being a stand for transformation in the world, and that's creating something different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. And again, it's like I take this and I've been feeling a lot into this particular week and this idea of what it means to have a vision, to be a visionary, and the fact that it's not just that moment of sparking into possibility. Because I'm approached by a lot of women, my clients. It's sort of that same kind of DNA of someone who's like about to launch into something and just needs that, like, and they all want to make this big impact. It's not just like, oh, I want to launch a side business. It's very big, it's very
Yeah.
deep. And the conversation I have with them is like, it's not just about this first moment and let's talk about it. It's also who you get to be moment by moment by moment. Because guess what? This is an every single, how you show up every single day kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's so, powerful to have the support and to have the space to have that like unravel, because part of it too, and I'm sure you guys watching my what's coming up for me is because I wasn't showing up in Maya in the way that I thought was like acceptable, because perfectionists and everything, it's like, oh, I got to show up a certain way and whatever. That in itself, like, I took myself out of the table, like I took myself out of the equation because I didn't feel like I was meeting some whatever. And then that turned into, well, of course, no, this isn't meant for me. And because I opted into something that felt very true and resonated very like deeply with me when I chosen very powerfully, I had no hesitation going into it. And I trust that. And yet I thought, maybe I'm meant to learn this lesson. Maybe the lesson here is that, you know what? I trusted it. Great. And now part of it is having this conversation and completing this chapter with another powerful woman that I'm scared to say, this isn't working for me. And that's the lesson. I was like, that's the thing. That's what my soul needs to learn now. And little did I know, nope, like that wasn't it. And I still got to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And I felt very much in integrity with this choice I had made. And then it's like, it goes deeper than that. So again, being in the space of the willingness to keep showing up for yourself, like no matter what, and to open up into more and more of that vulnerability, that raw, that receptivity of what is meant to come through to you in every moment of your life is just, and it's not always going to sound pretty. It's not always going to sound like what you want to hear. And yet, can you trust that it's all really divinely intended for your growth and for your evolution and self-mastery?
Yeah. And I think it's important for the people that are watching right now. It's, I always say it's not a question of if you're going to encounter resistance, it's a question of when, especially if you have a big vision. And so my prayer is that people really hook into your testimony, Maria Alejandra, and that whether they're going through resistance right now, literally in this moment, or like if they reference this video later, and like really hook into your vision that, your willingness, your surrender, your trust, like all these amazing choices that you made in the moment to be able to keep your heart open and like really look at what was actually happening there, then ended up causing a breakthrough, like multiple breakthroughs that are life changing, like truly in so many ways. It's such a testimony to the power of being willing to get intimate and go in versus running and saying I'm out, and then the rackets and the beliefs that ends up actually causing and the damage that ends up doing to a person's belief system and what they end up being able to create. So that's really my prayer in this conversation, is that you just are such a walking testimony. And you're such a blessing. I'm so grateful. Is there anything else that you would like to say as we start to wrap up here?
I just want, I want to share that just to dwell in possibility and to really speak into I believe the sweet spot is when you align that very strategic self of yours, that thinker, that, very capable, ambitious woman, with your divine wisdom, with your spirituality, which is what, you do and showcase so beautiful every day. And it's what I also create in my life. And that combination is, by default requires you to be incredibly open and vulnerable and strong and grounded, and have this duality and be at peace with that duality. And so for every woman out there who struggles with the, I don't want to be too harsh or intense, and I'm but I'm also incredibly feminine and soft, and we can be both, like the fire and that tenderness, because that's ultimately what the world really needs for us to evolve in this moment in time, is to really show up powerfully, and to not show up just yourself, but to be in the space where you're willing to receive like whatever messages and whatever wake up call you need at a certain period of time, and trust that what's on the other side of that moment of discomfort is just a blessing. So
Yes,
yeah.
I love that. Beautifully said.
Yeah.
I'm noticing in the Facebook that there are a lot of comments coming through for both of us. And so
Nice. I can't see the comments, so you got to tell
no,
me.
because using the technology. But I'm going to definitely go in after and respond to all of them. Maria Alejandra, if you want to go in as well, a lot of our
Yeah.
people are there
Yes.
sending us love. So I just want to thank you for taking the time. I know it's getting super late there on the East Coast, but I love and appreciate you so much. And I'm so grateful that I get to like indirectly influence your people through you. And that's one of my favorite parts of being the coach that I am, is like this ripple effect that gets to happen. And I don't take that for granted.
Yeah.
So I love and appreciate you so much, Maria Alejandra. And thank you again for your time tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. This was so beautiful. Thank you for creating it.
Yes. And I'll see you all next week on Dharma Talk Tuesday. Sending you love. Bye.
Bye, guys.